The October sun was beginning to set over the vast plains of Arizona, painting the sky in orange hues that reflected off the distant mountains. Sam Hartwell adjusted his cowboy hat as he drove his Ford pickup along the dirt roads that cut through his 2,000-acre property. At 45, Sam had spent the last 15 years running the Esperanza Ranch alone, a name his late wife Maria had chosen when they moved from Texas to Arizona in search of a new beginning. Solitude had become his constant companion since Maria died of cancer 3 years ago. The only voices he heard regularly were those of seasonal workers during hay harvest time, or the occasional visit from his neighbor, old Pete Morrison, who lived 20 miles east. The ranch was profitable enough hay, and some horse breeding kept the bills paid and provided a modest living. But the silence of the house at night had grown heavier with each passing season. Sam was checking the fence line along the southern border of his property when he saw something that made him stop the truck abruptly. There, about 50 yards from the dirt road, lay a massive fallen cottonwood tree, its hollow trunk creating a natural shelter. What caught his attention wasn't the tree itself. He'd seen it countless times before, but the small figure curled up inside the hollow log. He turned off the engine and stepped out slowly, his boots crunching on the dry grass. The desert wind carried the scent of sage and dust, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. As he approached, Sam could make out the form of a young girl, maybe 16 or 17, with long black hair matted with dirt and leaves. Her clothes, a torn denim jacket over a faded t-shirt and worn jeans, suggested she'd been traveling rough for some time. "Hey there," Sam called out softly, not wanting to startle her. "You okay, miss?" The girl's eyes snapped open, dark brown, and filled with a mixture of fear and defiance. She scrambled to sit up, pressing her back against the inside of the log, ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. "Easy now," Sam said, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm Sam Hartwell. This is my land, but you're welcome to rest here if you need to." The girl studied him carefully, her eyes taking in his weathered face, the genuine concern in his expression, and the way he kept his distance, respecting her space. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days, her cheeks were hollow, and her clothes hung loose on her thin frame. "I'm not trespassing on purpose," she said finally, her voice hoarse from thirst. "I was just ... I needed somewhere to sleep." "Where you headed?" Sam asked, crouching down to be at her eye level. "Nowhere specific," she replied, which Sam recognized as the answer of someone running from something rather than running to something. "You got a name?" She hesitated. "Ayana? That's a pretty name. Native American." She nodded. "Apache. It means eternal blossom." Sam could see the pride in her eyes when she spoke of her heritage, but also something else. "Spain, maybe. Lost." "Well, Ayana, I don't know what brought you to sleeping in a log on my property, but I can tell you haven't eaten in a while. My house is about a mile up that road. Why don't you come have some dinner? No strings attached. Just a meal and maybe a safe place to clean up." Ayana's stomach chose that moment to growl loudly, betraying her hunger despite her wariness. She looked at Sam again, searching his face for any sign of deception or ill intent. What she saw was a man who looked as lonely as she felt, with kind eyes that reminded her of her grandfather's. "I don't have any money to pay you," she said quietly. "Didn't ask for any," Sam replied. "Sometimes folks just need help. I've been there myself." After a long moment, Ayana nodded and began to crawl out of the log. Sam noticed she moved carefully, favoring her left side, and when she stood up, she winced slightly. "You hurt?" he asked. "Just sore. Been walking for a while." Sam wanted to ask more questions. Where had she come from? Why was she alone? What had happened to bring her to this point? But he sensed that pushing too hard too fast would only make her run. Instead, he gestured toward his truck. "Come on, then. Let's get some food in you." The drive to the ranch house was quiet, except for the rumble of the engine, and the occasional rattle when they hit a particularly rough patch of road. Ayana stared out the window at the landscape, the endless sky, the distant mountains, the scattered cattle grazing in the fading light. It was beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way that she understood. The ranch house came into view as they crested a small hill. It was a modest 2-story structure with a wraparound porch, painted white with blue trim. A few outbuildings dotted the property, a barn, a stable, workshop, and everything looked well maintained, despite showing the wear that came with desert living. "It's not much," Sam said as he parked near the front porch, "but it's home." Ayana followed him up the porch steps, noting the comfortable-looking rocking chairs and the wind chimes that sang softly in the evening breeze. The front door opened into a living room that was clean but clearly lived in by a man alone. A leather recliner faced a modest television, and newspapers were stacked neatly on a coffee table. Family photos lined the mantelpiece above a stone fireplace. "Bathrooms down that hall if you want to wash up," Sam said, pointing to a corridor that led toward the back of the house. "I'll get dinner started." "Thank you," Ayana said, and Sam could hear the genuine gratitude in her voice while she was gone. Sam moved to the kitchen and began preparing a simple meal: grilled cheese, sandwiches, and tomato soup. Comfort food that wouldn't be too heavy for someone who hadn't eaten regularly. He found himself wondering about the girl's story. She was clearly intelligent and well-spoken, but there was a wariness about her that spoke of hard experiences. The way she'd been sleeping in that log, the condition of her clothes, the careful way she moved, it all suggested someone who'd been on her own for a while. When Ayanna returned, Sam was struck by how young she looked with her face clean. She couldn't be more than 17, he thought. Maybe younger. Her long black hair was still damp from washing, and she'd done her best to clean her clothes, though they were still worn and travel-stained. "Smells good," she said, settling carefully into one of the kitchen chairs. "Nothing fancy, but it'll fill you up," Sam replied. Setting a bowl of soup and a sandwich in front of her, he watched as she ate, trying not to be obvious about it. She had good manners. She didn't wolf down the food despite her obvious hunger, and she said please and thank you without prompting. Someone had raised her right, which made her current circumstances all the more puzzling. "So?" Sam said, when she'd finished her first sandwich and was starting on a second. "You mind me asking how you ended up sleeping in a tree on my property?" Ayanna set down her sandwich and looked at him for a long moment. "It's complicated. Most things worth talking about are," she sighed. "I was living with my aunt in Tucson after my grandfather died last year. He raised me after my parents, after they were gone. My aunt, she's not a bad person, but she's got her own problems. Drinking, mostly, and her boyfriend." Ayanna's jaw tightened. Let's just say he thought having a teenage girl around was convenient. Sam felt a flash of anger at the implication, but he kept his voice calm. "So you left 3 weeks ago." "I've been hitchhiking, walking, sleeping, wherever I could find shelter. I was trying to get to Flagstaff. I heard there might be work there, and it's closer to the reservation where my grandfather grew up. I thought maybe I could find some family there." 3 weeks on the road alone, Sam said, shaking his head. "That's dangerous, especially for a young woman." "I can take care of myself," Ayanna said, a defensive edge creeping into her voice. "I'm sure you can, but that doesn't mean you should have to." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the only sounds the ticking of the kitchen clock and the distant lowing of cattle. Finally, Sam spoke. "You got anywhere you need to be tomorrow?" Ayanna shook her head. "Well, I could use some help around here. Nothing too strenuous, feeding the chickens, collecting eggs, maybe helping with some light ranch work. I can't pay much, but there's a small apartment above the barn that's not being used. It's got a bed, a little kitchenette, its own bathroom. You could stay there in exchange for the work." Ayanna stared at him. "Why would you do that? You don't even know me." Sam was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to answer. "My wife and I, we always talked about having kids. Never happened for us. But Maria used to say that sometimes God puts people in your path for a reason. Maybe you need a safe place to figure out your next step, and maybe I need the company. Seems like it might work out for both of us." "I'm not looking for charity," Ayanna said firmly. "Good, because I'm not offering it. I'm offering a job. Room and board, plus $50 a week. You don't like it? You can leave any time. But I'd ask that you give me a week's notice so I can find someone else to help with the chores." Ayanna considered this. She was tired, bone deep, tired from weeks of uncertainty and sleeping rough. The idea of a safe place to stay, regular meals, and honest work was more appealing than she wanted to admit. "What's the catch?" she asked. "No catch. Just be honest with me. Work hard, and don't steal anything." "I wouldn't steal from you. I believe you," Sam said, and meant it. Ayanna looked around the kitchen, taking in the homey details: the ceramic rooster on the windowsill, the hand-embroidered dish towels, the family photos held to the refrigerator with magnets. It felt like a real home, something she hadn't experienced since her grandfather's death. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll try it for a week. See how it goes." Sam smiled, the first genuine smile he'd worn in months. "Good, let me show you the apartment." They walked out to the barn as the last light faded from the sky. The apartment was accessed by an external staircase that led to a door on the second floor. Inside, it was simple but clean, a studio layout with a double bed, a small table and chairs, a kitchenette with a mini fridge and hot plate, and a bathroom with a shower. The windows looked out over the ranch and the desert beyond. "It's not fancy," Sam said, "but the bed's comfortable and the water's hot. It's perfect," Ayanna said, and she meant it. After weeks of sleeping in hollow logs and abandoned buildings, this felt like luxury. "I'll let you get settled in. Breakfast is at 6 if you want to join me, or there's coffee and cereal in the kitchen if you prefer to eat on your own. Work starts around 7. I'll be there at 6, Ayanna said. Sam nodded and headed for the door, then paused. "Ayanna, welcome to Esperanza Ranch." After he left, Ayanna sat on the bed and looked around her new temporary home. For the first time in weeks, she felt safe. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, or whether this arrangement would work out. But for tonight, she had a roof over her head and a full stomach. As she prepared for bed, she thought about Sam Hartwell. He seemed like a good man, lonely maybe, but kind. She'd learned to be wary of kindness from strangers, but there had been something genuine about his offer. No ulterior motives, no strings attached. Just one person helping another because it was the right thing to do. Outside her window, the desert night was alive with sounds: the distant howl of coyotes, the rustle of wind through the sage, the soft lowing of cattle settling down for the night. It was peaceful in a way that the city never was, and for the first time in months, Ayanna fell asleep without fear. Meanwhile, in the ranch house, Sam sat in his recliner with a cup of coffee, thinking about the day's unexpected turn. He'd gone out to check fence lines and come home with a house guest. Maria would have loved this, he thought. She'd always had a soft spot for strays animals and people alike. Maybe this was her way of telling him it was time to stop living like a hermit. He looked at the photo on the mantelpiece, Maria laughing at their wedding, her dark hair blowing in the wind, her eyes bright with joy and hope for their future. Together, he missed her every day, but tonight, for the first time since her death, the house didn't feel quite so empty. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. The rooster's crow pierced the pre-dawn darkness at 5:30 a.m., just as it had every morning for the past 3 years since Sam had acquired the ornery bird from a neighbor. Sam was already awake, as was his habit, sitting on the edge of his bed and listening to the sounds of the ranch coming to life. Somewhere above the barn, he could hear Moom, and Tayana was awake too by the time he'd dressed and made his way to the kitchen. The coffee was already brewing, and the familiar routine of morning chores beckoned. But today felt different. Today, he wasn't alone. A soft knock on the back door came at exactly 6 o'clock. Sam opened it to find Ayana standing on the porch, her long black hair braided neatly down her back, wearing the same clothes from yesterday but somehow looking more put together than she had the night before. "Morning," she said quietly. "Morning. Coffee, please." Sam poured 2 mugs and handed her one, noting that she took it black. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, both looking out at the ranch as the sky began to lighten in the east. "Sleep okay?" Sam asked. "Better than I have in weeks," Ayana replied honestly. "Thank you." "Good. You ready to see what ranch life is all about?" "I think so. I should tell you though I don't know much about cattle or horses. My grandfather had a small place, but it was mostly just a garden and a few chickens." "We'll start with the chickens then," Sam said with a slight smile. "Come on." The chicken coop was a well-maintained structure about 50 yards from the main house, surrounded by a fenced run where 24 hens pecked and scratched in the dirt. As they approached, the birds began their morning chorus of clucks and squawks, anticipating their breakfast. "This here's the feed," Sam said, opening a metal bin and scooping grain into a bucket. "They get about 2 cups in the morning, scattered around the run so they have to work for it. Keeps them active and happy." Ayana watched as he demonstrated, then took the bucket and scattered the remaining feed. The chickens rushed toward the grain with enthusiasm, and she couldn't help but smile at their antics. "Now the eggs," Sam said, leading her into the coop itself. "Most of them lay in the nesting boxes, but you'll always have a few rebels who think they know better. Check all the corners." They collected 18 eggs, which Sam explained was about average for this time of year. Ayana handled each one carefully, placing them gently in the basket Sam provided. "You're a natural," he observed. "Most city folks are afraid they're going to break them all." "I'm not from the city," Ayana said. "I grew up on the reservation until I was 12, then lived with my grandfather on his small place outside Tucson. He taught me to respect animals and they'll respect you back. Smart man, your grandfather. He was." There was a note of sadness in her voice that Sam recognized the particular grief that comes from losing someone who was both family and teacher. They moved on to the barn, where Sam kept his horses. There were 6 of them, a mix of quarter horses and mustangs that he used for ranch work and occasionally bred. Ayana's eyes lit up when she saw them. "They're beautiful," she said, approaching the nearest stall where a paint mare stood watching them with intelligent eyes. "That's Sage," Sam said. "She's got a good temperament. You ride." "A little. My grandfather had an old gelding named Thunder. He was gentle enough for a kid to learn on. Maybe we'll get you back in the saddle once you're settled in." They spent the next hour going through the morning routine, feeding the horses, checking their water, mucking out stalls. Ayana worked steadily, asking questions when she wasn't sure about something but mostly just observing and learning. Sam was impressed by her work ethic and her natural way with the animals. "What's next?" she asked as they finished with the horses. "Breakfast," Sam said. "Then we'll check on the cattle." Back in the kitchen, Sam cooked eggs and bacon while Ayana made toast and fresh coffee. It felt natural, the two of them working together in the space, and Sam found himself thinking again about how empty the house had felt for so long. "Can I ask you something?" Ayana said as they sat down to eat. "Sure. Why did you really offer to let me stay? I mean, the real reason." Sam considered the question while he buttered his toast. "You want the honest answer?" "Always. My wife died 3 years ago. Cancer. We were married 22 years, and I haven't had a real conversation with another human being in months. Yesterday, when I found you in that log, you looked like I felt lost and trying to figure out where you belonged. I thought maybe we could help each other out." Ayana nodded slowly. "I'm sorry about your wife." "Thank you. What was her name?" "Your grandfather, Joseph Crowfeather. He was a teacher on the reservation for 40 years before he retired. He used to say that the land teaches you everything you need to know if you're willing to listen. Sounds like a wise man." "He was. He's the one who gave me my name. My birth parents, they had problems, drugs, mostly. They died in a car accident. When I was 12, and I went to live with my grandfather, he said I needed a name that would remind me of my strength, not my sorrow. Sam could hear the pain in her voice, but also the love she'd had for the old man. He sounds like he was a good grandfather, the best I wish. She trailed off, staring out the window at the desert landscape. What do you wish? I wish I could have saved his place. After he died, I couldn't afford the taxes and upkeep, had to sell it to pay his medical bills. That's when I went to live with my aunt in Tucson, and that didn't work out. No, she meant well, I think, but she had her own demons. And her boyfriend ... double quotes. Ayana's jaw tightened. Let's just say I wasn't safe there. Sam felt that flash of anger again, but kept his voice calm. You're safe here, I know, I can tell. She looked at him directly. You're a good man, Sam Hartwell. I try to be. After breakfast, they drove out to check on the cattle. Sam's herd consisted of about 200 head of Angus and Hereford cattle, hardy breeds well suited to the Arizona climate. They were scattered across several pastures, and Sam explained how he rotated them to prevent overgrazing. The key to good ranching is working with the land, not against it, he said as they watched a group of calves playing near a water tank. This desert looks harsh, but it's got its own rhythm. You learn to respect that rhythm, and it'll provide for you. Ayana listened intently, asking thoughtful questions about water management, grazing patterns, and seasonal challenges. Sam found himself enjoying the role of teacher, something he hadn't done since Maria was alive. They spent the morning checking water tanks, looking for sick or injured animals, and counting heads to make sure none had wandered off or been taken by predators. It was peaceful work, and Sam noticed that Ayana seemed more relaxed out here in the open spaces than she had in the house. You like it out here, he observed as they sat in the shade of the truck, sharing a thermos of water. It reminds me of home, the reservation. I mean, all this space, the quiet. In Tucson, there were always sirens, traffic, people yelling. Here, you can actually hear yourself think. That's one of the reasons Maria and I moved here. We lived in Dallas for 15 years, and the city just got to be too much. We wanted something simpler. Do you ever miss it? The city? Sam considered this. Sometimes I miss the convenience being able to run to the store for something without planning a whole trip to town. But no, I don't miss the noise and the crowds. This suits me better. They worked together for the rest of the morning, and Sam was impressed by how quickly Ayana picked up the routines. She had good instincts with the animals and wasn't afraid of hard work. By lunchtime, he was already thinking that this arrangement might work out better than he'd hoped. That afternoon, Sam had to drive into town for supplies, and he asked Ayana if she wanted to come along. I need to pick up some feed and a few things from the hardware store. Might be good for you to see where everything is, in case you need something. Esperanza was a small town of about 3,000 people, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business. Sam was a well-known figure. He'd been trading there for 15 years, and people respected him as an honest man and a good neighbor. At the feed store, Sam introduced Ayana simply as my new ranch hand, and if anyone was curious about the young Native American woman working for the widowed rancher, they were polite enough not to ask questions directly. But Sam could see the looks, the whispered conversations, and he knew that by evening, half the town would be speculating about Ayana's story. Small town, Ayana observed as they loaded bags of feed into the truck. Very small. People mean well, mostly, but they do like to talk. Will that be a problem? Me staying at your place? Sam looked at her seriously. Not for me, but I want you to know what you're getting into. People will talk, and some of them might not be kind about it. If that bothers you, we can figure out something else. Ayana was quiet for a moment. My grandfather used to say that people who spend their time worrying about other people's business don't have enough of their own to keep them busy. I'm not doing anything wrong, and neither are you. Let them talk. Sam smiled. Your grandfather really was a wise man. On the way back to the ranch, they stopped at the small cemetery where Maria was buried. Sam hadn't planned it, he just found himself turning into the familiar entrance without thinking about it. I hope you don't mind, he said. I usually stop by when I'm in town. Of course not. Maria's grave was in a quiet corner under a large mesquite tree. The headstone was simple, granite with her name, dates, and the inscription, beloved wife and friend. Sam had brought fresh flowers, desert marigolds that Maria had always loved. She would have liked you, he said as he arranged the flowers. In the vase, she had a soft spot for anyone who needed help. What was she like? Stubborn, Sam said with a smile. Kind, funny, stubborn as a mule when she thought she was right. She was a teacher, 4th grade. Loved those kids like they were her own. We tried for years to have children, but it just wasn't meant to be. She used to say her students were her kids, and that was enough. She sounds wonderful. I still talk to her sometimes. Probably sounds crazy. Not to me. I talk to my grandfather all the time. Sometimes I swear I can hear him answering back. They stood in comfortable silence for a few minutes, each lost in their own memories. Finally, Sam touched the headstone gently and said, "Come on, let's head home." That evening, after the chores were done and dinner was finished, Sam found himself reluctant to see Ayana go back to the barn apartment. The house felt less empty with her around, and their conversations over meals had been the highlight of his day. "You're welcome to watch TV in the living room if you want," he offered. "I know it gets quiet out there in the evenings." "Thank you, but I think I'll read for a while. I found some books in the apartment." Those were Maria's. She was a big reader. "You're welcome to any of them," I noticed. She had good taste. "I started To Kill a Mockingbird last night, one of her favorites. She taught it every year." Ayanna headed for the door, then paused. "Sam, thank you for everything. This is the first time in a long time that I've felt like I might actually be okay." "You're going to be more than okay," Sam said. "You're going to be just fine." After she left, Sam sat in his recliner with a beer and thought about the day. It had been good, better than good. For the first time since Maria's death, he'd felt useful, needed. Having someone to teach, someone to share meals with, someone to talk to, it made all the difference in the world. Outside, the desert night was settling in, and somewhere in the barn apartment, a young woman was reading by lamplight, finally safe and beginning to heal. It wasn't the family either of them had planned on, but maybe it was the family they both needed. If you're enjoying this incredible story of hope and second chances, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Share this video with someone who believes in the power of human kindness. More amazing stories coming your way. 3 months had passed since that October evening when Sam found Ayanna sleeping in the hollow log, and the rhythm of ranch life had settled into something that felt surprisingly natural for both of them. The desert winter was mild compared to what Sam had known in Texas, but the mornings were crisp enough to require jackets, and the evenings brought a chill that made the warmth of the ranch house kitchen all the more welcoming. Ayanna had proven herself to be everything Sam had hoped for, and more. She was up before dawn every morning, had a natural way with the animals, and approached every task with a thoroughness that impressed him. More than that, she'd brought life back to the ranch in ways he hadn't expected. The chickens laid more eggs, the horses seemed calmer, and even the cattle appeared more content when she was around. But it was the changes in the house that struck Sam most profoundly. Ayanna had begun joining him for dinner every evening, and their conversations had evolved from polite exchanges to genuine friendship. She was intelligent and well-read, thanks to her grandfather's influence, and she had a dry sense of humor that reminded Sam of Maria. The house no longer felt like a mausoleum of memories. It felt like a home again. On this particular morning, in late January, Sam woke to find snow dusting the desert landscape, a rare occurrence that transformed the familiar terrain into something magical. He was making coffee when he heard Ayanna's footsteps on the back porch. "Did you see?" she asked as she came through the door, her cheeks flushed with cold and excitement. "Hard to miss," Sam replied, handing her a steaming mug. "Doesn't happen often out here. It's beautiful. My grandfather used to say that snow is the earth's way of starting fresh, covering up all the old scars and giving everything a chance to begin again." Sam looked at her thoughtfully. Over the months, she'd shared more stories about her grandfather, and each one revealed the depth of wisdom the old man had possessed. "Sounds like something he'd say." They stood at the kitchen window, watching the snow fall in fat, lazy flakes that melted almost as soon as they hit the ground. The cattle were huddled together near the windbreak Sam had built years ago, and the horses stood with their backs to the wind, patient and stoic. "We'll need to check the water tanks," Sam said. "Make sure they don't freeze over. I'll take care of it after we feed the chickens." It was a small thing, the way she said we instead of you, but it warmed Sam more than the coffee. Somewhere along the way, this had stopped being his ranch with a hired hand and had become their ranch, their shared responsibility. The morning chores took longer than usual due to the weather, but neither of them minded. There was something peaceful about working together in the snow, their breath visible in the cold air. The desert unusually quiet under its white blanket. It was while they were checking the cattle that Sam noticed Ayanna had grown quiet, more thoughtful than usual. She'd been like this for the past few days, and he'd been wondering what was on her mind. "Penny for your thoughts," he said as they walked back toward the truck. Ayanna was quiet for a moment, then said, "I've been thinking about what comes next." Sam felt a familiar tightness in his chest, the same feeling he'd had when Maria first got sick, and he'd known, somehow, that their time together was limited. "What do you mean?" "I mean, this was supposed to be temporary. A week, maybe 2, get back on my feet. It's been 3 months. Has it been a problem? You wanting to leave?" "No," she said quickly. "That's just it. I don't want to leave. This feels like ... like home. But I can't stay here forever, as your ranch hand. I need to figure out what I'm going to do with my life." Sam was quiet as they drove back to the house. He'd been dreading this conversation, knowing it would come eventually, but hoping it might be later rather than sooner. The truth was, he couldn't imagine the ranch without Ayanna anymore. She'd become as essential to his daily life as the sunrise. "What is it you want to do?" he asked finally. "I've been thinking about that a lot. Before my parents died, before everything went wrong, I wanted to be a teacher like my grandfather. He used to say that teaching was the most important job in the world because you were shaping the future, one child at a time. That's a good dream. But I never finished high school. Hard to be a teacher without a diploma." Sam pulled up to the house and turned off the engine. but neither of them made a move to get out. You could get your GED, there's a program in Tucson, or you could probably do it online now. I've looked into it. The problem is, I'd need to study, and I'd need money for the test and for college eventually. I can't do that and work full-time, too. Sam was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then he said, "What if you didn't have to choose?" "What do you mean?" "What if you could stay here, help with the ranch part-time, and use the rest of your time to study? I could pay for the GED program and help with college when the time comes." Ayanna stared at him. "Sam, I can't let you do that. It's too much." "Why is it too much?" Because I'm not your responsibility? You've already done more for me than anyone has a right to expect." Sam turned to face her fully. "Ayanna, these past 3 months have been the best I've had since Maria died. You've brought life back to this place, back to me. If helping you achieve your dreams means I get to keep you around a little longer, that seems like a pretty good deal to me. But what if I fail? What if I can't do it? Then you'll try again. That's what family does. They support each other through the failures and celebrate the successes." The word hung in the air between them. Family. It was the first time either of them had said it out loud, but it had been growing between them for weeks, the sense that they'd become more than employer and employee, more than friends even. They'd become something like father and daughter, or maybe uncle and niece, bound not by blood but by choice and mutual care. "Is that what we are?" Ayanna asked quietly. "Family, I'd like to think so," Sam said. "If you're willing." Tears gathered in Ayanna's eyes, but she was smiling. "I'd like that too." That afternoon, while the snow continued to fall intermittently, they sat at the kitchen table with Sam's laptop, researching GED programs and community colleges. Ayanna was amazed by how much could be done online. Now she could complete her high school equivalency from the ranch and then take college courses part-time while continuing to help with the ranch work. "I want to pay you back," she insisted as they looked at program costs, every penny. "I'll keep track of everything, and when I'm working as a teacher, I'll pay you back. If it makes you feel better to think of it as a loan, that's fine," Sam said, "but I'm not worried about the money. I'm investing in your future, and that's worth more to me than any amount of cash." That evening, as they prepared dinner together, a routine that had become as natural as breathing, Sam found himself thinking about the strange turns life could take. A year ago, he'd been a lonely widower going through the motions of living. Now he had someone to care for, someone who cared about him in return, and a purpose beyond just maintaining the ranch. "Sam," Ayanna said as they sat down to eat. "Yeah, I want to ask you something, but I don't want you to feel obligated to say yes. Ask away. Would it be okay if I took your last name? Legally, I mean. I know it might seem strange, but Crow Feather was my grandfather's name, and it feels like it should stay with him. I don't want my aunt's name or my birth parents' name. I want a name that represents who I'm becoming, not who I used to be." Sam felt his throat tighten with emotion. "You want to be Ayanna Hartwell, if that's okay with you? I know it's a big thing to ask." "It's not too big," Sam said quietly. "It would be an honor. Maria and I, we always regretted not having children to carry on the name. If you want it, it's yours." "Thank you," she whispered, tears flowing freely now. "Thank you for everything. For finding me, for taking me in, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." "Thank you for letting me," Sam replied, "for giving an old rancher a reason to get up in the morning and something to look forward to." 6 months later, on a warm July evening, Sam and Ayanna sat on the front porch, watching the sunset paint the desert sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. Ayanna had passed her GED with flying colors and was enrolled in online courses at the local community college, working toward her teaching degree. The ranch was thriving, and they'd added a small vegetable garden that Ayanna tended with the same care her grandfather had taught her. "Letter came today," Ayanna said, holding up an official-looking envelope from the court. Sam looked at her expectantly. "It's official. I'm legally Ayanna Hartwell now." Sam smiled, the kind of deep, satisfied smile that came from seeing something important completed. "How does it feel?" "Like coming home," she said simply. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Sam thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. A lonely rancher and a lost girl, both searching for something they couldn't name, had found each other in the vast Arizona desert and created something neither had expected. A family built, not on blood or obligation, but on choice and love. "Your grandfather would be proud," Sam said. "I think so too, and I think Maria would approve. She would have loved you like a daughter." "I hope so, because that's what I am now, isn't it?" "Your daughter. In every way that matters," Sam confirmed. That the desert night settled around them, peaceful and full of promise. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new adventures. But tonight, they were simply a father and daughter, sitting on their porch, watching the stars come out over their ranch. Their home, their life together, in the distance. A coyote howled, and somewhere in the barn, the horses nickered softly to each other. The desert was alive with its ancient rhythms, and the Hartwell family, unconventional though it might be, was part of that rhythm now. Part of the endless cycle of loss and renewal, endings and beginnings, that defined life in this harsh and beautiful land. Ayanna had been found sleeping in a hollow log, lost and alone. Now she had a name, a home, a future, and a father who would support her dreams no matter where they led. It wasn't the family either of them had been born into, but it was the family they'd chosen, and that made it perfect. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of hope, family, and second chances. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel and share it with others who believe in the power of human kindness. Don't forget to hit that notification bell for more inspiring true stories. What did you think of Sam and Ayana's story? Let us know in the comments below. This story is a work of fiction inspired by real events and the resilience of the human spirit. While the characters and specific events are fictional, they represent the very real experiences of those who have found family in unexpected places and hope in the darkest of times.